This is about a guy who woke up one day, found out he was getting divorced, and ended up living in 368 square feet of a rolling house. Yep, you guessed it, Krazy Keon. Now, I'm going to tell you how to do what I didn't do, and that was plan for full-time camping. This whole season is going to be centered around full-time campers. The do's, the don'ts, the things you need to know, those who probably shouldn't do it, and those who are going to do it and probably shouldn't do it. I'm going to tell you how to do it the right way with the proper planning, proper preparation, all that good stuff. Nevertheless, buckle up, y'all. Put your Boy Scout on, because we about to make this thing do what it do.
Coming to the stage is the king of crazy. Let's put our hands together and welcome the king of crazy, Keon Hayes, and hanging with the Hazes.
What's up, fam?
Yeah!
Show you right.
That's right. Give it up for my main man. Now let's get into this.
So I figured out one day, coming home, realized I'm getting divorced. Now, before the rumor mill starts, let me just say this. I didn't come home to find somebody in my house or anything like that. She wasn't that type of lady. But I did find quite the opposite. Now that I think about it, I came home and wasn't nobody there. And, that started my 40s and the chapter of my life I like to call What the So, nevertheless, as we start that chapter, I had to make a decision. So the decision was to stay in a house that, wasn't mine, that I couldn't afford, or go on my own. Now, for you folks out there that have had to get apartments in the last couple of years, you realize that it's very, very expensive. It is an expensive feat to get an apartment. So I looked over to my left as I'm looking at my front door and an empty living room, and I saw this ridiculously large vehicle, a basic house on wheels. It had a bed, 2 TVs, a toilet. It had a shower and a tub, 2 sinks, some living room furniture. And I realized I'm doing better off in that than I would be here. So I threw all of her stuff on the front lawn, moved my little bit of stuff that I had in a 368 square foot box. That is how I started full-time camping. Now, nobody told me the ins and outs. Nobody showed me how to do it. And what I'm going to do is talk to you about how to do it, when to do it, the best time to do it, and, depending on where you are in life, what you can benefit from doing it, if you can benefit. But it is not a bed of roses like everybody thinks. Like, I used to camp on a regular basis, week at a time, weekend, whatever. As long as I could get out of the house in my rolling house and just go somewhere, man, it was fun. But that all went away. And this is the part of full-time camping that nobody tells you. Like, camping didn't become fun. It was a lifestyle at that point that I had to rely on. So it was no longer a vacation for me. It was, this is your life. In the chapter of what the So it is what it is in that respect. So let's dive into this a little bit. I'm going to tell you what I did to get started, and we're going to call that the chapter of new beginnings, aka what in the whole.
While we taking a break and getting funky just a little bit, let me just introduce myself. I am the man on the ones and twos, DJ Funky Skunk, and I want to remind you, make sure you check out our bonus episodes. We call that Hanging with the Hazes Unscripted. And coming May 1st, make sure you subscribe to YouTube, because you are going to get Hanging with the Hazes Uncensored.
So when I started full time, and like, the circumstances aside, I thought it was going to be a great idea. I thought I came up with this wonderful plan, this just magnificent process. And, I was in my 40s, the new 20s. And I thought it was a great idea. Now, the people that knew me kind of looked at me as if to say, boy, are you crazy? Like, you earned the name. And I was out to prove them wrong. But there is a challenge that comes with this. And the first challenge is I am now doing something every single day that was my getaway. It's no longer my getaway. It's my everyday life. So I had to get past that hang up first. Okay. Now, in order for me to go and enjoy camping, I have to pack up my whole house, put everything away, move the coach, put the stuff back when I get back. And it's just like, So I had to get past that hang up first. Once I did that and I made this transition from recreational camper to full-time camper, the adjustments were easy. The coping afterwards was something different, because what you have to remember is no matter what the situation, it's just like a house. You go to it, you have to deal with it. However, with a house, things are relatively straightforward. With a rolling house, everything is 3 times the cost, and you may not necessarily have the skill set to fix everything. Luckily, I did, and I'm going to be upfront. If you are talking about doing this, you need to invest in some skill sets and YouTube University, because that is the only way you're going to be able to get through this. There are times where all I got is me. That's it. Let a drop of snow hit the ground. Nobody's coming to rescue you and fix anything. And if you're lucky enough to have a fixer guy in the campground or wherever you are, great. But if you're in motion the whole time, like, you're going to spend all your money trying to fix your unit if you don't know how to do the basics. So let's get back to how this started. So I'm getting divorced. I had some choices to make. I could have stayed with a friend, but we were on the outs and just not really in the best of spaces. So instead of getting an apartment, I moved in. And for a while, I was just kind of boondocking. I would stay at a campground for a couple, or then I'd stay outside of mom's house, or I would stay at a park and ride close to work and just, while out, live, and just live off the land. But then I ran into the issue of, how do I fuel this coach to run the generator all the time? And on that unit, solar panels was not an option. So I'm now divorced. I'm on my own. I'm trying to figure this thing out, and I am throwing money out the door. So the first decision I needed to figure out was, where in the heck am I going to call home? Now, I'm stressing this because if you think that you're just going to roll across the country, full-timing, and you have no concept of home, that don't work. You have to have something to call home. Your kid's house, mama's front yard, your homeboy's house, your girlfriend's backyard. Somewhere has to be home in order for psychologically you to be whole. That is what I had to figure out. So I found a campground. They liked me. I liked them. They said, give me $300, and I moved in, paid the first month's rent, and I was good to go. I had somewhere to call home. Now, once I established home and I was able to psychologically wrap my mind around that, the next part of that is, what's next, and how do I get my friends and family to understand this decision? Mom, for me, was no brainer. She was like, dude, this is what you do. What's the problem? Everybody else, not so much. Try getting a girlfriend and and she finds out that, as soon as you get sick and tired of her, you can put the key in and be gone. Soon as her mom finds out where you live, boy, whoo, she's going to hear it. And I'm not saying that that's what happened to me, but, it definitely did cross my mind. Now that we've talked about the why I did this and how I ended up having to establish home psychologically, most people do not up and full-time travel because of my situation. And it's usually not a situation where they have to make a last-minute decision. A lot of people decide to do this for job relocation. They decide to get a travel job and they just want to travel the world, and that's fine. A lot of people want to do this for retirement, which is great. However, you have to understand, if you're doing this for your job, that's great, but you still need to have home. If you are just going to travel and be out and about, try to stay somewhere for several weeks at a time in a campground or something like that, where you have the stability of modern electric and sewer. Because just trying to camp out in Walmart parking lots and work, when that doo-doo starts stinking and, your batteries die one time, you'll lose that jazz quick. You're not going to just stay on the road. Find a campground that'll have you there for 3 or 4 months. There are plenty of campgrounds throughout this country that will give you long-term camping, be it seasonal, full-time, whatever the case is. You need to do that, especially if you're traveling, because once you get off work from a travel job, you want to go, what did I say? Home. You just want to go home. And you need that stability. Now, for those who are thinking about doing this for retirement, the one thing I'm going to tell you is you got 3 options. You can bounce from kid's house to kid's house, which is what I suggest, since they bounced off of your wallet for the last how many years. The second option is for you to have a homestead at a campground and then venture out and come back. That's an option. But the third option is even better, which kind of combines the two. Buy a lot somewhere in Florida, somewhere south, no snow. So Florida, Texas, Georgia, Louisiana, somewhere like that. Or make one of your kids' house the homestead, with the understanding that once you finish the road for 2 or 3 months, that's where you're going to come back and stay for 6, 7 weeks. And that is important. So you got to be somewhere where you can come home to for an extended period of time. And listen, yes, your rolling house is home, but home is not always where you park it. Home is where there is stability and people that you love and know. That's home. So we've redefined home in this particular chapter. Make sure you join us on YouTube, because come May 1st, you're going to be hanging with the Hazes Uncensored. Button is probably going to be hit a lot. Check us out. So now that we got home out the way, let's tackle the next challenge. So I came home, of course, told you my story, and now I live in my recreation. So how do I have recreation and home? And there has to be a balance to that, okay? Now, if anybody loves camping as much as I did or I do, recreational camping has to happen in order for you to find that balance. And the way that you do it is like this. You're home for the week, you're home for the winter, and you're working, you're thugging it out if you live above I-64 in the winter, and you're stationary. During the summer and months and the spring months, and even into, I'm going to say, fall, if you live in a snow area, every weekend you want to do something. Now, that something doesn't necessarily mean moving the unit, but you need to be in a place, home, where they have movie night, some camaraderie with other campers, something to take your mind off the fact that you live in a box so you're not isolated. And that's very important. When you can move, you want to go somewhere. Pack your house up and go. So the options that you have are like weekend getaways at local campgrounds. So try like the local campground down the road. Hang out there for a couple of weeks. Listen to them, the transients down there. Talk about that place. Talk about your place. Talk about any place. But just get away from where you are. So quick weekend getaways are great for that. Cheap camping with Harvest Host. Just find a vineyard, a brewery, a distillery. Okay, so now I sound like an alky. Find a farm that's got great tomatoes. Find a farm that's got cows that they slaughter and pig. Okay, look, just go to a brewery or a vineyard. It's just so much easier. You can just stumble back to the unit. But anyway, Harvest Host, places like that, boondock type places. That way you can exercise your generator, hone in on your boondocking skills, learn how to conserve water when you do have to be out. Because wherever you're staying, I'm sure that the power goes out and all that type of stuff. So this gives you an opportunity to do that with some fun and beer and wine. So, like I said, go places, change up the norm. It brings the fun back. And let's truthfully talk about this. Beer and wine, if done correctly, you can get a lot of it on the cheap, and it pays for your camping. So if you want to pay for your camping just because you bought beer, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The other thing that you need to do, vacation outside of your coach or trailer. Now, I have a dog, and it's hard to do. But if I can go to a hotel somewhere in the Keys or, Las Vegas, wherever, I could board her, take her with me. But at the end of the day, you need to get away and do something other than the everyday look at these thin walls of a camper. So some of your vacations are going to have to be in a hotel, even though you probably got your camping unit to save money on that. But now you live in it. So give it a break and let it, you take a break. You just need to do that. So vacation outside of the coach or trailer. So let's segue into something else. Now, once you make the decision to jump into a full-time camping, if you still have, after everything you've heard, I've said, decide to do that, here's the one thing that you got to know. Know your limits and know your budgets, okay? So full-time camping ain't for the weary at heart. It's just not, all right? The biggest thing you got to deal with is the weather. You can't control it. You can't manipulate it. You can yell at it, kick at it, scream at it, and it still doesn't care. It's going to deal with you. So if you are older, you might not want to be above I-64. And you hear me mention I-64 a lot on the East Coast. West Coast, I would say well south of I-40. Maybe a little farther north of I-40, but like literally from Tennessee down on the west. Maryland, Virginia, Northern Virginia, you want to it can be sketchy, but for the most part from I-64 on down. So from Richmond south, you're good. Weather can be crazy. And snow is worse on your unit than anything because of the weight and just various other factors dealing with snow. If you've dealt with snow, you understand. Now, keep in mind, you need to keep your unit in tip-top shape and always be ready to move it because in Florida, a Texas twister can come through forgetting that it's not in Texas and successfully relocate your unit to a different zip code. Same thing for Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, all of those tornado-prone states, Kansas, Oklahoma. Just be prepared. Keep a radio close by that's a weather radio that'll alert you in the event of severe weather. But weather in general can impact your life. So always be prepared. Keep some credit cards in the car. Always keep Expedia or Travelocity or Priceline on your phone because you might have to get a hotel because you have to get a repair done or something like that because of the weather. So you need to always be prepared for that. Now, the other thing, what happens when your unit breaks? What do you do? So if you can't fix it, then you need to be able to either A, take it to somewhere. I will not say that CW place, but take it somewhere else that can fix it. And while you're there, you need to, have somewhere to stay. So be prepared for that. Keep that in the budget. Other repairs that you need to worry about. One of the things I will tell you is if you are in unfamiliar places, never, ever leave your water on when you leave your unit and close your tanks. We'll talk about that in another episode of what not to do when you're camping in unfamiliar places. So That being said, make sure that you have a plan when something breaks. Keon didn't have that. I ended up fixing a whole lot on my own, but I had the tools to do that. Some people don't have that luxury. Now, also keep in mind, can you afford to be in the area in which you want to stay? A lot of people don't think about that. Maryland is expensive. It's just what it is. It'll cost you, on the average, $1,000 a month for a monthly site. I won't tell you how I know that. Just trust me. Other places north of 64 are about as expensive, and it does not get cheaper until you get into Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and then it jumps again in Florida. Now, Florida is probably a little bit more manageable because they have the space to do it. But you need to think, can you afford the area? And I'm not talking about just campsite. Can you afford the insurance on your rig? Because in some places, the insurance, especially in Florida, is significantly more expensive for a variety of reasons, which for this show I cannot get into because this is a Christian, well, I'm a Christian type guy, and I don't want to say and hit the bleep button and then have to confess all of that later. So in general, just stay out of Florida if you can help it, because you got to come there with a couple dollars for insurance. The other thing you got to worry about is like tires, maintenance, things like that. Are you going in an area where all of the maintenance rates for mechanics is $150 an hour? Can you afford that? Something to think about. You got to do your research and plan that. If you're going to be on the move most of the time, what is your plan when you have to move from site to site and something happens? Do you have a plan to make sure that you have somewhere to stay? Do you have a towed car that can get your family or you to a safe place if you have a motorhome? Things like that. Do you know what type of motor and chassis you have in the event that you have to go to Mommy Freightliner? Those are the type of things that you need to know. What do you do in the event that the place that you wanted to go back to, if you have like 1,000 Trails membership or something like that, can't get you in? How do you deal with that? You have to think about these things ahead of time. Now, as we come to the end of this particular episode, I will tell you that it has been a rewarding experience and a life-changing experience for me. Even though this chapter of my life was what the but I cannot trade it for the world. I'm having so much fun, and I get to talk to y'all. So, hey, this is a wonderful thing. Now, in the next episode, we are going to talk about post-decisions to full-timing. What to do between November 1st and April 1st if you're moving, because winter be coming, and winter camping ain't for the faint at heart. So now you've full-timed, you're in it, but now you're looking at sub-freezing temperatures. We're going to talk about what to do with that. We're going to talk about the things that you need to have and prepare for those type of events. And it's more than you need other than just a heated water hose. We're going to talk about how to protect your unit in winter full-time camping, because that is the time where you're most likely going to be stationary, and that is when stuff's going to hit the fan and break that you really don't want to deal with it. But proper preparation. Matter of fact, I'm going to use a term that a buddy of mine, Alvin Cox, let me tell you, I miss that rascal like the death. He used to tell me all the time, perfect practice makes perfect performance, and perfect preparation makes a perfect full-time life. Now, is it perfect? No, but it's doggone close to it. And I am going to help you out with that. Make sure you check out episode 2 and season 2 for winter camping full time, how we do it. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me. I'm going to send it over to my man, Funky Skunk. He's going to give you all that you need to know about how to follow us. And thank you again for checking out this cast. I'm out of here.
Be sure to join us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and you can always catch us on Facebook and YouTube. Hanging with the Hazes.